Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. I haven't made a video in a good couple of months, and I've had, as always, people contacting me and asking me how I am, how's my tinnitus, what's the update with the neuromodulation, and everything I said in my last video. I'll start off with myself. To be honest, I've not been great. My tinnitus hasn't been very good the last few weeks, last month, couple of months. It's not been good. It's not been terrible, but it's not been great. Level 3s, dipping into 4s. It's no mystery why. I know the reasons why my tinnitus fluctuates and goes up and down, and this time round is no mystery. It's just, as you've heard me say many times before, it's just life. It's just life, and it's people, and it's too much stuff going on in my head, and it's too much just life, too much stuff. You know, why does everything have to be so hard? So I know why it's not being good, but the good news is I know how to get it back down again. You've heard me say this in other videos, so I know what I need to do. I need to practice what I preach, and take time for myself and use the methods that help me again to get it back down again. So and today I have some time, so that's why I'm making this video today. And today really I'm going to start getting back to where I need to be again, yet again. Okay, but I'm okay, but it's the last few weeks, it's just too much stuff going on, and it's not been good. Convincing me again that it's the brain, and emotional state of mind is tinnitus and your emotional state are attached to each other. You know, we've been through this many times, and that just confirms it yet again for me. So anyway, moving on from me. In this video I'm going to talk about neuromodulation, the sound generator, and also I had a phone call with somebody who has tinnitus, and it's a very, very positive message that I'm going to include in this video from this guy that I spoke to. He doesn't want to be named, but he'll know who he is. And it's very positive, and it's very hopeful for everyone that has tinnitus. The short version is this guy had tinnitus, and then it went away for 5 years. So I will talk about that in more detail a little bit later on. But I'm going to start this video really with an update on the use of the sound generator that I was trying out, that you heard me talk about in my last video. Okay, so since I put out my last video, I had people contact me about their experiences with them. Now, a lot of you have said, and I had phone calls with people as well. Now, quite a few of you have said that you didn't find them helpful, and in fact, as I did myself, you found that it made your tinnitus worse. So you stopped using them. On the other hand, I had people saying to me that they did find them helpful because their tinnitus was such an awful noise that they were hearing, whether it was the volume of it or just the sound itself, that they found the generators helpful in the fact that the sound created by the sound generator was a more pleasurable sound to hear all day than the sound of their tinnitus. So I understand that. I understand that it's a more pleasurable sound, but to me, that's still just masking the sound of the tinnitus. And I don't think, in my opinion, that that's what these devices should set out to accomplish. I think it should be more of a case of when you've used them and you take them off, your tinnitus should have reduced, or, you know, God willing, not that I believe in God because I don't, but that it would have removed it completely. But that's not what I've been getting from people at all. At best, that it was just a more pleasurable sound to listen to than their own tinnitus. Which leads me on to, I went back to the clinic where I got the sound generator from to see the consultant, and she was very, very nice, and was interested in what I had to say. She has tinnitus, and wasn't rushed at all, and she was genuinely interested in what I had to say. But when I first walked into the clinic and she asked me how have I found the sound generator, what did I think of it, and my answer to her was, I've not found any benefit from it. In fact, it made it worse. And her reaction to that initially was, well, Adrian, did you use it correctly? Are you sure you used it correctly? Well, yeah, I stuck it in my ear. What do you do with it? I stuck it in my ear and I wore it. What more can you do with the thing? So we talked about it for a while, and I said I hadn't felt any benefit from it, and I said what other people had said to me, and I put it to her that some people had said to me that they had found it helpful in the fact that it, I'm going to use the word that I use, shrouded the noise that they hear as tinnitus. And she said to me that shrouding isn't the right word. She preferred the idea and the theory that you can habituate to the sound that the generator makes rather than the tinnitus tone. So we got into this. So what she was telling me was that the idea of these sound generators is that you put it on your head and you listen to the sound of, mine was like an out of tune radio that I listened to. The sound, we copied it from the fan that she had in her clinic. And she said the idea was that I would habituate to the sound this generator makes rather than my tinnitus tone. So that while I wore this thing all day, I wouldn't hear either the sound generator or my tinnitus. Well, to me, still, what's the point of that? I'm just habituating to it didn't work anyway, but even if it did work and I could habituate to this sound that this generator makes, I'm just habituating to another sound that's being put into my head. I don't see the point. What I want, and what we all want, is to reduce the sound of the tinnitus or get rid of it. So, although I agreed, yes, it could be helpful to those that it's awful and you can shroud it with this noise, I don't think, I still haven't changed my opinion on them. And I did say to her, I took a couple of notes, I did say to her that in my opinion, still, if these devices were to be of any real use, or are going to be of any real use, then they should either cure or at the very least reduce the tinnitus that we hear. In that after using them for whatever period of time, when we remove them, it sounds like there's a bloody helicopter coming over now. When we remove them, our tinnitus should be better. Otherwise, what's the point? So we kind of disagreed on the sound generators and the benefits of them. We kind of disagreed. So the next thing was, I'm just going to close the window because we've got a helicopter gunship coming over. Right. So then I wanted to move on to the next level about these audio treatments and devices, and I wanted to speak to her about neuromodulation, which I spoke about in my last video. My eyesight is terrible. Don't take gabapentin. Keep away from it. Pete, if you're watching, you haven't told me what you ended up doing about gabapentin. I really hope you haven't taken it, because my eyesight is still terrible and I think it's getting worse. Right, Right, so I said to her, what do you think about this neuromodulation? And surprisingly, she didn't seem to have a lot of knowledge about neuromodulation, but she was aware of the private clinics offering neuromodulation, at the London clinic, offering this device at £3,000 to £5,000. I wanted to know her professional opinion. Is there any truth in neuromodulation, these devices that cost this amount of money, working? Do they work? What's their opinion? I wanted to know, if you wore this thing for a period of time, do you come to a point where when you remove it, your tinnitus is reduced, or better still, gone? And she couldn't give me any sort of real opinion on this, or any evidence that this is the case. Which brings me on to, so what I've said to her is, and what I'm putting out there today, is I'm going to visit this clinic in London who offer this neuromodulation. I'm making an appointment, a consultation, to go and see them and see what they have to say. I will, when I come back, she wants to see me and hear what I have to say about it. She's NHS and this is a private clinic I'm talking about. Now, with neuromodulation, I did ask for anyone in my last video who's used neuromodulation to contact me and let me know what they thought about it. Now, so far, I've not had anybody come forward to tell me that it's removed their tinnitus. Not one person has come and said to me that it's removed the tinnitus. But if you are one of these people, if you are someone that's used this and it did remove your tinnitus, get in touch, because so far not one person has come forward and said that it's removed it and it's got rid of it. What I have had is a couple of people that contacted me say that it reduced the sound that they hear. It reduced the volume and the intensity of the tinnitus after using these devices, the neuromodulation. It did reduce it, so that's good. That sounds promising. One guy I spoke to, I had a couple of phone conversations with people. One guy that I spoke to, he said it decreased it by, about 30 to 40%. So that's a lot. That's good. That's just one person. And I can't recall. What sort of period that he said that he used it for, but he did say it had helped him. If you are that guy, I don't want to put names out there, but perhaps you could contact me again and elaborate on that. One issue that was answered, if you believe this to be true, one issue that was answered was the cost, because I wanted to know why these devices cost £3,000 to £5,000. Why? What's so special about these devices that they cost that amount of money? Now, one person I spoke to, again, without mentioning names, they used this device and they were on a trial for it, and the trial was cut short. This guy using this device, the trial was cut short, and the clinic said, well, you can keep the device, we're not worried about that, you can keep it. So clearly this device the device itself is not the cost of £5,000, because there's no way they would just say, we'll just keep it. They would want that back if it cost that amount of money. So it's not the device. So what I did get from people was that the cost is more down to the one-to-one help and the consultations that you have with the clinic while you're using the device. So you're paying for their time more than anything, which makes sense. You know, you're paying for their time, and the people that I spoke to did say that they found the consultations very, very helpful, which I can believe. Yes, okay. So they're having these consultations with these people at the clinic, and they found them helpful. But still, £3,000 to £5,000 is a lot of money just to have an understanding talk with somebody. I don't know what they say to, you know, what the discussions are or what the consultations are, because I haven't had it yet. But still, to me, £3,000 to £5,000 is still a lot of money to pay for having an understanding talk with someone. But I reserve judgment on it until I experience it myself. Now, this is interesting. What I did find, I did some digging about neuromodulation, and I have found a video in which an audiologist, name of Mark Williams of the Tinnitus Clinic, London, he had an interview on the BBC with none other than Tony Blackburn, and I've put a link to this video at the bottom of this one in the comments. And in this video, Mark Williamson, the audiologist, says that tinnitus, the question is asked, what is tinnitus? That's the first question. Is it a problem of the ear, or what is it? And he says it is a neurological problem of the brain rather than the ear, which is what myself, Gray and Julian have been saying all along. It's a neurological problem of the brain more than the ear. And in this video, there's a guy that's had treatment, in this interview, there's a guy who's had treatment at the Tinnitus Clinic using neuromodulation, and he used it for 6 months, and he says that it really helped him, and he goes without the sound of his he's been without the sound of his tinnitus. He's been without the sound of his tinnitus for approximately 7 months. He does say it comes back, but then it disappears again. That sounds great, doesn't it? I mean, that sounds brilliant. So he's used neuromodulation from this clinic, and he hasn't had his tinnitus for 7 months. It came back, but then it goes again. Brilliant. But that's where that conversation ends. And then the audiologist goes on to say that the contemporary method of neuromodulation is to reduce the area of the brain firing the neurons that produce the tinnitus. Now, the question is asked in this interview, does it work for everybody? And the answer predictably is no, and that it will only work for those with tonal tinnitus, and it will only work for those with enough hearing still intact for this to work. So for the severe deaf, or those, you know, that have bad hearing loss, it's not going to work for them straight away. It's not going to work. In other words, the ear has to be able to hear the sound that this thing's putting into you. So I wondered if this is the case, do they tell people that with severe hearing loss or bad hearing loss that it won't work before they fork out the £3,000 to £5,000? And Tony Blackburn was obviously thinking along the same lines, because he says, so I could fork out thousands of pounds and it doesn't work. And the audiologist, Mark Williamson, says, no, this isn't the case, because we have a suitability criteria that we go through first. So Tony asks, if it doesn't work, can I have my money back? And Mark Williamson says that they have a trial period, so if it doesn't work, you haven't spent the 3 to 5k that this thing costs. So when I make this appointment, and I go for this appointment at the Tinnitus Clinic, and I am going with an open mind, I'm going to quote this to them about this trial period, so that I don't end up forking out £3,000 to £5,000 for something that's just a glorified MP3 player. Alright, so yeah, I'm cynical. I am cynical, but other people have said it's helped them. So I am going to try this, but I'm going to quote this about this trial period because I don't intend to fork out £4,000 to £5,000 on something that doesn't work. So I'll keep you updated on that and how I find the clinic and what I think about the device. Obviously I'm going to have to use it for a little while during this trial period. Okay, so that's neuromodulation and sound generators. And what was next? Oh yeah, I found another video which I'll put a link to, in which a doctor, you've seen this guy before I'm sure, talks about the very medical trial that I spoke about in my last video about neuromodulation. It's the same one, so I'll put that there as well if you want to look at that. Right, okay, now I'm going to end this video with a really positive conversation. A really positive conversation that I had with a subscriber on the phone who trialled the neuromodulation. That's why he phoned me, but that's not really what I'm going to talk about this conversation, because it wasn't really it wasn't the neuromodulation I don't think that ended up with this result from what he said to me. What I want to tell you about is the fact that this guy had tinnitus and then it disappeared for 5 years. Now, I've no reason. When I spoke to this guy, he sounded absolutely sincere, totally honest, and I cannot think of any reason why this wouldn't be true, what he told me. And he sent me an email with basically you know, his story, and I thought I would relay this to the tinnitus community, as I think it is very, very positive and gives quite a lot, which hopefully will come across very positive and give a lot of hope to people, including myself, because I haven't had 3 days of what I call true peace and true silence since the 3 days I had away in Yarmouth, which is like months and months and months ago. I have not had that again. Right, so I'll read what he sent to me. I first noticed my tinnitus around 2000-2001. I didn't think at the time it was a stressful period, and I hadn't made the connection between low mood and stress. But looking back, this was almost certainly the case. I was run down, weary, and not enjoying life. It's a bit like me for the last three or 4 weeks. But not what I considered stressed. Well, we don't. This is what I've said before. A lot of the time we don't realise that we're in a state of depression or stress when we really are. I was given a depression medication, and I still exposed myself to loud noise. I had a relationship fail, but carried on with life after the tinnitus began. I experienced no sleepless nights at that point and pretty much accepted the GP telling me to get used to it. I can only assume that I had it for a low level, as I habituated quickly. But I remember it still being around in 2005 and 6. I think I then became free of it from around that time until 2010. So that's 5 years tinnitus free. It just went. That's 5 years being tinnitus free. I certainly didn't need to feel the need to do anything about it until the opportunity to join a trial came up, which I'm not going to get into because I've spoken enough about neuromodulation. Unfortunately, it flared up enough for me to act in between those dates, so it came back. It came back, I think, to a change of country, so he moved, change of job, living back with my parents. Who knows if this brought it back? Believing in what I do now, that being the stress and fight or flight response being the trigger, I am sure that it was one or all of those things that made the tinnitus come back. I was then diagnosed with hearing loss in 2014. Hearing aids seemed to help, although I was in a better place, so it's impossible to tell which sparked the recovery. I then lived tinnitus free again for around 4 years. So again it came back and then it went away for 4 years. Until April 2018, when I experienced another stressful period. I discovered the self-care approach via YouTube at this point, and it was like getting the picture to a complete jigsaw puzzle. So he spoke about the things that, the methods that Julian puts out there, what I've spoken about and Gra's spoken about. He came across our videos and videos like ours, this thing about lowering your nervous system, calming your nervous system is what he was talking about. And I can understand that I was stressed way back. Did I move to a less stressful place? Is this what I needed to do? All these questions are coming up and the answers are right there. I am now a firm believer in the fight-flight response approach and recovery of calming the nervous system. Finding yoga and self-care has helped. I still get uncomfortable days, but they seem easier to deal with because of the calm that mindfulness brings. I feel sure that if I carry on, it will drop away again, completely. But if it does come back, I'm hopeful now that I now know how to manage stress better. I'll see it on the horizon and act before it arrives. By which I mean on a day-to-day, then week-to-week, and on to a year-to-year basis. I'm firmly in the reduced stress camp now, but some people there may be another answer. I hope this helps provide you with some content, Adrian, for your next video, and I hope you find the silence that you're looking for. So I think that's really a hopeful, positive message. This guy has the condition of tinnitus, but he has had 2 periods of years where it did disappear. And as I've said before in my videos, if it can disappear for that period of time, it can disappear for longer. And as with myself, in my 3 days, I mean, that seems pretty insignificant compared to 4 or 5 years, but to me it was just bliss. If it can happen for 3 days, as it did with me, if it can happen for months, as it has with some other people, and if it can happen and tinnitus can leave us for 4 to 5 years, then I think there is real hope that it can leave us for good. And this is why I am going to get back on my own path and get back yet again to my level 1 or 2 self, because the last few weeks I haven't been taking care of myself, and I've done this before, you've heard me say this before, but I know what I need to do. So I think that's where I'm going to end on this video. I will let you know how I find the clinic in London. I will keep you updated on that, and best wishes to everybody, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye.